Hello guys. In this episode, I'm going to talk about Sicilian najdorf. Sicilian najdorf is a chess opening which is very popular, and I'm going to explain in great detail why it got its popularity. And most of the people will be talking what is when we come on the chessboard and sit, and most of the people will be talking Sicilian Sicilian night off, and something like that. So in this video, I'm going to explain every single variation of the Sicilian night off. First of all, in my channel, I'm going to tell you about openings, middle games, and end games. So, in this video, let's start right to it. This is the first episode. After e4, many grandmasters nowadays, and almost everybody plays c5 against e4. Why is it so? The reason being that if you go c5 rather than e5, let's say e5, knight f3, knight c6, let's say the Scotch. Now you exchange your central pawn for his central pawn, and you have this both. You have the e pawn and he has the d pawn. So you both have the central. Anybody don't have the central majority. So if you play c5, I mean now c5. C5 that's c pawn is a flank pawn, right? If you play c5 after knight f3, you can comfortably go, let's say d6 or e6 or knight c6, let's say d6. Now d4, cd4, knight d4. Now we have two central pawns, d6 and e7, compared to his one central pawn. So you are in a central majority right now, and always remember the central majority favors you. So that's the reason. And also Sicilian gives you very sharp play, and if you want to win really in the round, you go Sicilian all the time. So first of all, in today's video, I'm going to talk about Sicilian najdorf. So after d6, this is the main move nowadays. e6 is known as the time. e6 is a variation. It's not known. cd4, knight d4. There are many lines in this position. There is the move knight c6, which takes the game into time of Sicilian. There is the move a6, which takes the game into Sicilian can. So after knight takes, okay, not in this position, d6, d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3. Basically, this is the main position of the open Sicilian. Open Sicilian, the position is to open, because it's known as the open Sicilian because there's another line, which is the closed Sicilian after knight c3. Okay, but anyways, after e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, cd, knight d, and f6 and c3. Now here are plenty of variations. The main being a6, the most popular being a6. Reason being that it starts attack on his king with b5 if he castles king side, and if he castles queen side, I mean, and if he castles king side, you also have very sharp play. You can play many things. For example, let's see a variation. Instead of a6, some people got g6 in this position, known as the Sicilian dragon. Very sharp line, sharper than the najdorf. A player has to win or lose in this dragon. There are no chances of draw. For example, let me show you a line. Bishop e3, bishop g7, f3 is a required move to stop this move, knight g4. So after f3, double zero, queen d2, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop d7, triple zero, rook c8, g4, let's say knight e5, bishop e3, knight c4, bishop c4, rook c4, h4. So both sides are attacking. Black is attacking on white's king, and white is attacking on black's king. This is the position when you get when you castle opposite. That is also a variation. This is the dragon Sicilian. Nowadays no one really plays it because it is really not an explode. So knight c6. This is known as the Richard Rouser variation. It is also a sister line of a6, the najdorf. We get similar positions, but now bishop g5 is a move, which makes the difference. So after a6, plenty of variation, the main being bishop g5. But nowadays, in fashion, there are plenty of variations. Bishop e3 is a variation which is employed by many grandmasters, almost all, Carlsen, Anand, and Michael Adams, everybody. Bishop e3. Here also there are two lines. e5 is the main move, the najdorf move, and e6 is the line which converts back into the Scheveningen Sicilian, which I forgot to mention, but anyway. There are other lines. Bishop g5 is too popular at the time of Bobby Fischer, and everybody in the olden days Bishop g5 is too popular. uh, Bishop e3 is popular nowadays. Both are main lines, let's say. In this position there are other lines. Bishop c4 is known as the Fischer's source in attack. Bishop c4, it is also it is effective against black king. Example, bishop c. e6, there is an interesting move. Bishop b3 now, getting out of the way, making your bishop defended. Securing the bishop, we'll call it prophylaxis. So after a6, other lines are there. Other lines exist. f4 exists in this position. A very complicated move, trying to gain space. Let's say after a6, bishop g5, you get similar positions. e6, f4. You're fighting for space. As much as space you get, as much in a comfortable position you are. After f4, there is one line which is too sharp, which is queen to b6. This is known as the poison pawn variation because you really call pawns which are gambited for quick, rapid development. Those are called as poison pawns. So after queen b6, there is the interesting line queen d2. But instead of queen d2, you can also play knight b3. It's passive, but it's defending the pawn on b2. It's not bad, but queen d2 is really good. Queen takes b2 and other two lines come here. Rook b1 is a line, is a main line in fact, and knight b3 is a line which is it forces queen a3. It also gives you everything, gives you rapid development. For example, rook b1, queen a3, f5, knight c6, knight c6, bc6, fe6, fe6, e5. Pawn sacrifice to open the files. Remember this chess principle. This is the most used principle in chess. It means open the position when your opponent's king is in danger. So after d5, you go bishop f6, ef6, knight e4. Queen takes a2, counter attacking the rook on b, and rook goes to d1. If instead knight takes f6 check, then king f7. It is attacking your knight. And if you move the rook now, just will win the piece. The king is not in danger, believe it or not. Queen f2 and we can escape easily. So there are a lot of lines. For example, knight b3, queen a3, bishop e2, something. You can play everything in this position. And after bishop g5, one other line exists, knight d7 is okay. And I forgot to mention bishop g5, f4, bishop g5, e6, f4. Bishop e7 is the old main line. The idea is knight d7, queen c7, double zero, b5, attacking on white's king. Now, main idea for white is queen f3. He will try to expand with queen f3, g4, bishop into f6, triple zero, and g5. Let's consider a line after castles, knight d7, g4 now. If b5, bishop into f6, and really he cannot take with the g pawn. Actually, maybe he should not castle that quick. Knight d7 is a possible line. After which same type of positions arise. g5. The reason being that if you take with the bishop, he could take back with the pawn. But if he takes back with another piece, let's say you go g5, knight moves, you go something like h4, you get really a lot of space. This is the story of bishop g5 Sicilian. Now, there is a line bishop e3 which is known as English attack, and e5 is the main move. And Kasparov and many players introduced the move knight d4 too. Knight g4. Nowadays people play to reach the time control fast, but it remains its own line nowadays after bishop g5, moving the bishop out of the danger. Bishop c1 is popular, after which knight here is good. Even after bishop g5, the best move h6. Now bishop c1 is popular, and you really want to go knight f6 back. The idea of this line is to go into Sicilian Fischer line. with bishop g4. But really the main line being bishop h4. After g5, bishop g3. Many lines. So you can watch Kasparov Anand games, many games in this line. After e6, bishop e3. e6 converts back into Scheveningen. e5. We want really to stay in the najdorf territory. e5 is a good move in this position. Knight b3. Bishop e6. Defending the d5 square. The reason is that if he plays his knight to d5, you can capture with his bishop. You can also capture with your knight, but this bishop really gets out of squares. Let's say bishop f5 and something. But taking with the bishop is good. And you cannot also take this knight. Common trap in Sicilian, bishop b6. Attacking the queen. After queen moves, knight c7. King moves knight into a8 to win the exchange. But in this position, knight d5 is not really popular. f3 is the best move. After bishop e7, queen d2. White plans to castle king side. In this position, after queen d2, if you play something like queen d2 here, you can just continue, and if you really avoid f3, you can go knight g4, kicking this bishop. There are 2 points of f3. One is to start attack with g4, one is to avoid knight g4. So f3 is the really main move in this position. After bishop e7, queen d2. Let's consider line. 000, 000, knight d7, g4, b5. Now you are attacking on his king. I mean black is attacking on his king, white's king, and white is attacking on black's king. So whose attack is first, they win the game. But there is another line to avoid that attack, being h5 in this position, stopping g4. And after 000, now we can play knight d7, something like this, b5, and he doesn't have g4, he cannot attack. But we can attack, and in this position I think black is comfortable. I cannot say he's better. It's a position is dead equal, but not dead equal, but black equalizes easily in this Sicilian najdorf. Another line is in this position h3, which is called Anand variation. This move is played to play g4 without f4. So here e5 is a good move. After knight d2, they go h5 to stop g4. Similar idea as we saw before. And after h3, they also go e6. Reason being that after g4, we can go d5. Counter in the center. Recently, Topolo experimented with the move knight d7 against Anand in the candidates tournament. After a6, there are other lines. g3 is the fianchetto system in the najdorf, but really nothing matters. e5, knight d2, b5, bishop g2, bishop b7. You get a comfortable position. And after knight f3, a6, knight c3, a6, there is another line which is a4. The thing is that it stops your b5. It is good for white, even it is good for black. Black has 3 different variations: knight c6, e6, e5. I consider knight c6 as the better one, but even e5 is good. e5 here, he doesn't go to b3, it looks awkward, he goes to f3. His idea is, let's say something like this: bishop c4, bringing his pieces towards your king. 000, he'll go something like here, something, let's say here he'll go queen e2, some kind of lines, rook d1. But I'll explain this in other videos. So this video is just basic Sicilian najdorf. What is Sicilian najdorf basically? Now in this position, another line is f3. In this here you have different lines. e5 is possible, queen b6 is possible, and everything is okay. After a6, another line which is known as the bishop e2 line in Sicilian. It is also possible. If you go e6, you are transposing to the Scheveningen Sicilian, but if you go e5, okay, it is good. After knight b3, you can go bishop e7, 000, bishop e3, bishop e6. The main idea in this line is he'll go king h1 and f4. If he goes immediate king h1, we can go b6. He can also go bishop e3 followed by f4. That is also possible. He can also go f4 immediately, but knight c6. Okay. But after bishop e3, there is one interesting line for f3, knight d7, queen d2, queen c7, a4. This is known as the Karpov approach played by Anatoly Karpov. After rook c1, he'll go a5, getting space near the queen side. And there are also many other lines possible in this position. For example, the line which came into fashion nowadays. After e5, knight b3, bishop b7, bishop g5. After castles or something like this, they go bishop f6. Bishop f6, they improve their position of the queen not to d2 but to d3. It is really central. Queen d3 is a good move. No problem for black in that variation, but in this position after e5, he cannot go to f3 really. It is too awkward. You can continue with bishop e7, bishop e6, 0. Okay. So after c4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, you can also play after. He can also play after a6. He can also play the move something like this queen f3, crazy stuff, or simply a line played by Ivanchuk, rook g1. It is okay. Kasparov played g6 in this position to stop that. Okay. So finally, my conclusion is that Sicilian najdorf is a really positive opening for black. It is really good line. It is very good line. Don't underestimate the power of Sicilian najdorf. And okay, thank you guys. Bye. Have a good day.